And Amy, so the big story since Trump's inauguration, before Obamacare replacement was introduced, has been the deep state, has been the intelligence community, the seeming discord within that community, the leaks allegedly coming out of that community, the allegations by Democrats about Trump and collusion with the Russians, the allegations by Trump about surveillance by the previous administration. And
he specifically called out President Obama for wiretapping his phones at the Trump Tower.
And he was asked about that and why he tweeted before he had any evidence to present to the public on the topic when he sat down with Tucker Carlson yesterday.
But if you take a look at some of the things written about wiretapping and eavesdropping, and don't forget, when I say wiretap, those words were in quotes. That really covers, because wiretapping is pretty old-fashioned stuff, but that really covers surveillance and many other things. And nobody ever talks about the fact that it was in quotes, but that's a very important thing. But wiretap covers a lot of different things. I think you're going to find some very interesting items coming to the forefront.
There's the ultimate tease, and stay tuned in 2 weeks. We'll have more information for you.
I can't wait for I can't wait for the exciting conclusion as congressional committees, the House Intelligence Committee looks into all of these matters. For more on this, we're joined by General Michael Hayden, no better person for a discussion of the deep state, who former CIA director, NSA, director of national intelligence, a decade in the intelligence community, in addition to his career military service, and his new book, Playing to the Edge, American Intelligence in the Age of Terror. General Hayden, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Dan. Morning, Amy.
So here's just a question about kind of the state of play in the intelligence community. You have, and we've talked to them, former assistant directors of the FBI and other former CIA operatives, suggesting, going so far as to suggest there is a bit of a fifth column action going on within the intelligence community against the Trump administration, which really raises all kinds of obvious concerns. Do you believe it's as serious as that suggestion?
No, I don't, which is not the same thing, Dan, as saying we don't have a problem here, all right? I think both the incoming administration and the intelligence community dug themselves a pretty deep hole as we were talking about what we now know was Russian interference in the American electoral process. The Trump campaign, the president himself, as president-elect, said some harsh things about the intelligence community and that estimate before finally and reluctantly in January agreeing that the Russians did indeed do that. And now what we've got is Mike Pompeo, the new director at CIA, Dan Coats, just confirmed yesterday as director of national intelligence. You've got to convince the workforce now, put that behind you. That was then, this is now. Look forward. We only have one purpose in life, and that's to make the president better at his job than he would otherwise be.
Well, when you were in charge at the CIA, did you know of anybody that was leaking information to the media?
Right before I arrived, Porter Goss, my predecessor, fired an individual who was talking to Dana Priest of the Washington Post about CIA black sites. So, yeah, there are leaks. But I would not go to the earlier suggestion that what we have here is a deep state and an organized campaign against the new administration. Let me give you an example. Let's look at the changing government since 2000. When George W. Bush became president, he didn't change anybody at CIA. He kept Director Tenet. 8 years later, Barack Obama comes in. He changes one person. You're talking to him. And he went out of his way to personally talk to my deputy to keep him and the rest of the staff on. And now, with President Trump, the only people he swapped out are the director, Mike Pompeo, and Mike got to pick a new deputy. The rest of the people there are career intelligence professionals who have worked for Republicans and Democrats throughout their professional lives.
Well, and you also have yesterday former acting CIA Director Mike Morrell, who endorsed Hillary Clinton, called Donald Trump a dupe of Russia, say on the question of the Trump campaign conspiring with the Russians here, there is smoke, but there is no fire at all. There's no little campfire. There's no little candle. There's no spark. And there's a lot of people looking for it. Isn't it fair, too, that the intelligence community should be offering statements of restraint that perhaps temper the unrestrained rhetoric of politicians on the Hill?
Absolutely. In effect, Dan, that's what Michael did yesterday. And let me add that a week or so out of office, former DNI, Director of National Intelligence, Jim Clapper, was on Meet the Press and explicitly said they have no evidence of collusion between the campaign and the Russian Federation based upon the investigation up to that point. So I guess you're actually bringing up, Dan and Amy, a really good point. The intel guys really try to call balls and strikes, but in our hyper-political environment, that gets translated into something quite different by both sides.
Well, then how do you process President Trump, though, accusing President Obama specifically of tapping his phones at the Trump Tower?
Yeah, I saw that when they first came out, and Amy, I got to tell you, that's just not how the plumbing works. What he said in the common English understanding of those words, which he kind of tried to change last night, in the common English understanding of those words, the plumbing doesn't work that way. The president can't order such a thing. Since Watergate, we've taken that authority away from any president. You got to go to a judge to do that, and you got to prove a pretty good case before he even considers it. So that was just wrong on its face. And what we've seen are Republicans and Democrats point out that there's no evidence that anything like that happened.
Right, but there was a report about an October request for a warrant from the FISA court that was granted for some nature of surveillance. There's a dispute apparently on exactly what the nature was. But we also have, this is not in dispute, President Obama issuing executive orders on his way out the door with respect to the sharing of surveillance information among more than a dozen different intelligence law enforcement agencies, and kind of the timing of that. Does any of that raise concerns for you?
They do, but not the concerns we're talking about here, Dan. I'm quite familiar with what that last late executive order did. And in essence, you got it right. It pushed intel data out beyond the intel community. But that had actually been on the burner for 12 to 18 months. And I think it just got pushed out the door unrelated to this. But Dan, I got to tell you, unrelated to this, that's still a big deal. And that's still a serious question. And I think good and honest Americans need to take a look at that and see how happy they are that we've decided to do that. You know, we got hammered a lot 15, 16 years ago about not sharing information. Here's a directive by the president that removes kind of the last boundaries to sharing. But you're raising a serious question. Even though that might make us more effective in catching terrorists, what does it do to our liberties? And is it, on balance, a good idea?
It's like a marriage. It's good to share, but you don't want to share too much. Playing to the Edge, American Intelligence in the Age of Terror is his new book. He's General Michael Hayden, who we're speaking with. And I want to get back to where you were going there, a little bit of retrospective, because you lived through and were instrumental in the transitioning of the intelligence community, the transformation of national security policy in material ways from 9/11 forward. And just your perspective now, looking back at that 15 years later, are we better at our spying for the purposes of enhancing national security? Are we more coordinated? Are we more effective dealing with the global threats that we face in 2017?
Yeah, Dan, the answer is yes across the board. I mean, we really are. It sounds self-justifying, but we're actually pretty good at what we do, and we got better after 9/11. So that the kind of attack we feared, the kind of attack we saw at 9/11, the kind of attack we feared would happen after 9/11, the odds of that happening are incredibly low because, again, we're good at our work. So what do we get, Dan? We get San Bernardino. We get Orlando. We get Chattanooga, which is not, that carefully organized, slow-moving, multi-actor mass casualty attack prepared overseas and then exported into the United States. We nail that all the time. Now what we've got are these self-motivated sort of folks here in this country, which is, frankly, a really different flavor of a problem.
General Hayden, Donald Trump's revamped travel ban is back out, and there's some pushback from some judges. But how do you think that will make Americans safer?
Yeah, so Amy, I'll give you 2 or 3 thoughts on it. All right. Number one, really full credit to the administration cleaning up the first travel ban, the first executive order, and really doing a lot of things to make this one more focused, more targeted, more appropriate. So that's one. Number two, I'm a creature of the executive branch, and I actually think the Constitution gives the president a pretty wide range of authority on these kinds of questions. But then Amy, at the end of it, I just got to say, despite everything I just said, I still think this is bad policy. I just think it's attempting to address a threat that was overhyped. It's underestimating how much vetting goes on right now, which is a lot. And frankly, I think it makes for us more enemies in the Islamic world, and we just don't need that. So good credit for the administration for making it better, but at its base, I just think it's flawed policy.
During the campaign, then candidate Trump, now President Trump, got in a bit of trouble about talking about torture or enhanced interrogation techniques, as the phraseology is used. And I wonder what your reaction and response is to people who say that enhanced interrogation doesn't work. We've never gotten any actionable intelligence from that. It's something that should be discarded and the debate should be ended.
Yeah, so my life experience flies in the face of what you just said. We did get otherwise unavailable information in the CIA's detention and interrogation program. And Dan, that's just not Mike Hayden, George Bush's guy saying it. Barack Obama's CIA chief said it, okay? And so we did get valuable information. But Dan, the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter what President or candidate Trump said, CIA is not going to do it again. Not because it didn't work, not because it's ashamed of its past, but Dan, it's not going to do it again. Because when administrations changed hands, the CIA guys were hung out to dry by the incoming guys. You know, when you do something like this for the U.S. government, you think they got your back forever. And that turned out not to be true. So I cannot imagine a current or a future CIA officer, CIA director, directing his officers to do this because he knows he can't protect them in the future from political or legal backlash. I famously said when Mr. Trump said that as a candidate, well, if he wants somebody waterboarded, he better bring his own bucket.
Very interesting. He is General Michael Hayden. The book, Playing to the Edge, American Intelligence in the Age of Terror. General Hayden, thanks so much for joining us, sharing your insights, and best of luck with the book.
Thank you, guys.
And it was an honor having him, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.